Terunofuji, the first of his name, king of the dohyo and the playoff and the thrilling finishes, 73rd of his rank, and your July Yusho winner.
It's a
Uh,
special tournament. I really love to see what felt like a really important conclusion to his career, even if he does continue to compete for a while longer. I think it's really great that we can say that he's got the double-digit championships now. I think that was really amazing to get to see.
yeah, it kind of feels like one of those TV shows where you know that the series, like if the series decided to end right here, it would be going out on a high note, but the studio just decides, oh, you know what, I think we've got about three more seasons worth of this stuff, so let's just keep it going. So, we can call this the end point of Terunofuji's career as far as, doing what he set out to do. Everything else from here is just gravy that, might be good, might be bad. We'll see.
Yeah, he seemed relatively healthy for definitely for the majority of this past tournament, whereas, there had been other ones where it felt like he was really on his last legs competing. So it's kind of hard to imagine him retiring right away if he's still fit enough to compete at a high level. I mean, I'm not sure if the drive to get that 11th and get that 12th championship is quite as strong as it was to get that 10th. Maybe that goal and reaching it was helping him push through for a long time, but it doesn't seem like there's too much of a rush for him to step out just yet.
Well, I mean, certainly the fact that he has his goal now, I mean, he might, stop pushing himself to the point of like physically endangering himself as he seemed to be doing in March and May, which resulted in him just giving up a whole bunch of losses that he absolutely had no right to do. Um but now that he's got his 10th, I mean, you never know really, because when I mean, we obviously weren't there to see it, because we're new to sumo, the new to sumo podcast for new to sumo fans. When Hakuho, set the all-time record for championships, he stayed on to win another over dozen of those. So I think really the fact that Terunofuji is the Yokozuna and can sort of, play every other tournament as he sees fit and not really feel that much pressure anymore, like maybe it's going to extend his career by like even a couple of years. You could we get on him for like putting his body at risk, a lot, but I mean, he can make, 50 to $100,000 a tournament just between, his winnings and special prizes that he might be eligible for. So, who are we to tell him, okay, you have to stop?
Yeah, of course. And when he competes, he typically is the best in the tournament. Out of every tournament since the start of 2022 that he has competed in more than half the matches, he's won
Hmm.
the championship. So basically, if he's well enough to compete and go all the way through and, make it to the final days of the tournament, he typically wins it or he always wins it in the last few years. So that seems to just be the system that he's working off of. And it sounds like the JSA, the governing body of the sport, at least for now, until an obvious rising star to take the mantle comes through, seems like they're comfortable with that as well. It also seems like Terunofuji's injury issues combined with his dominance, his utter dominance when he does compete, seems to be pairing interestingly well with this continuing narrative of there being a lot of really great wrestlers in the top division and in the top of that top division in the Sanyaku ranks, but no clear favorite outside of the Yokozuna himself.
Absolutely. I mean, like this Basho alone, I think left us with like probably even more questions than answers about the future of the top division because you have Kirishima failing to get his jump back into Ozaki, which basically means he's not even going to be in contention for Yokozuna, till at least like maybe the middle of next year if he just goes crazy even if he goes crazy these next three tournaments. And then you've got Takakeisho, who, just fell down from Ozaki for the first time in a few years. And, I don't think he's had 10. I don't think he's going to get the 10 wins he needs to bounce back up. But meanwhile, you've got, this really impressive, these two impressive up and comers, Onosato and Hirata Umi, who, Onosato, of course, won the May tournament, and Hirata Umi has just been getting better and better the higher he's climbed, which is very unusual. And even Abi is starting to actually string together winning records up in the Sanyaku ranks, which he wasn't doing this time about a year or two ago. All of that is to say, like there really doesn't seem to be a lead dog to replace Terunofuji, which I think really speaks more to the just absolute chasm of difference there is between him and the rest of the top division. I think it is impossible to have any other take other than if he were at 100%, he would probably just be obliterating everybody and just getting off 14, 15, win tournaments all the time. That is just how good he is when he is at full health.
It's
Or even just not hurting in the least bit.
Sure. It's interesting though because during this period of the last year and a half or so, certainly since we've been watching the sport closely, where he had competed in very few of those tournaments, certainly
Hmm.
very few of them did he compete for the whole thing. There were some people who were seeming to be, rising stars who maybe were going to be the next, great wrestler and win several in a row, and it never quite happened. We had it was Hoshoryu at one point was looking like he was going to start dominating. Kirishima had a moment where it seemed like that was possible. Taka Keisho, not long ago, people were actually thinking he could be going on a Yokozuna bid, and then that did not
Hmm.
happen. And now he's going to be dropping down on the Banzuke. So it seemed like there was a chance. It's almost like in Terunofuji's absence, there had been a couple of different bids to try and fill that absent role. But at least until he's permanently gone, whenever that's going to be, we might be waiting a while longer for someone to really come through in that position. You think of Onosato and Kotozakura, some of the younger up and comers in the at least new to the Sanyaku ranks. They seem like they could be getting there at some point in the future. Hoshoryu, he's starting to hit his prime years. Maybe that would be him at some point. Maybe more likely than someone like uh, Taka Keisho, who seems to be on the decline. But it's kind of tricky trying to imagine what the next year or two, certainly 2 years from now, might look like in the Banzuke.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like there's a lot of, up and comers, but nobody who's really ready to just say, this is my show now, this is my yard now. Which does lead me to the next topic that I wanted to broach with you. Are we at a place where sumo really even needs a Yokozuna, in order to really serve as the ambassador of the sport? Because you know, I remember a few weeks ago you told me about a poll that indicated who like the most popular wrestlers were. And I believe you told me that it was Ura who was the most popular wrestler, if I'm is
Yes,
that right?
that's correct.
And that's so fascinating to me because someone like Ura probably would have just been seen as like cannon fodder for like the real champions back in the day. I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that he just is not built to be like a Yokozuna or maybe even a Yusho winner. He always just seems to run into a wall with somebody who is just physically bigger and stronger than him, every single time. But of course there's Aura, but then there's also like guys who people just, love to see, guys like Atami Fuji, who had a couple of runner-up finishes last year. We have Takanosho, who was just the runner-up this year, big, nice, smiley guy. We've got Midori Fuji, who's just a very fun technical wrestler. And we've got just all these other guys that are down the Banzuke that either have never won a tournament, have been perpetual runner-ups, or just don't have what it takes to win a tournament, let alone become, an Ozaki candidate. And I just have to wonder, is sumo in a good enough place where we can just sort of latch on to these guys that we love and not have to worry about, oh, who's, the top dog fulfilling his duties. What do you think about that extremely long-winded thing I just said?
I think it's an ongoing question that we'll be coming back to for a while, at least during this period of time where Terunofuji is still the clear best competitor in the whole Banzuke, but isn't going to be competing in every tournament, and until there's a clear standout person to take over that position, I don't think it benefits the sport to have a Yokozuna that's sort of forced into the position, maybe in a situation where there weren't two straight Yusho, but it was a Yusho and then a playoff on a not so high record, kind of like really trying to make sure there's a Yokozuna, even if that person hasn't proven their dominance. Because to me, being the Yokozuna is about being truly dominant. I mean, there's also this principle when it comes to sumo and the Yokozuna's position that if they stop winning tournaments and stop having competitive records, that they're expected to retire. Because the whole
Mhm.
point of a Yokozuna isn't, oh, well, now you've earned your Yokozuna role, so you just get to have it forever. It's that you're only in that role for as long as you are the best or always competing with the very best at the very top level of every tournament. And I think that's what's special about the position. You could name anybody a Yokozuna, but I don't think it means quite as much as when you reserve it only for those who have truly proven to have been the best. And it kind of makes me think of how right now in the world of professional baseball in the United States, there are no teams that have over 60% win record in the sport, which is very, very unusual, especially this far into a season. And it's just making me think like every year you have to crown a champion in baseball or any other sport, but not all champions are created equal.
Right.
One trophy is equal to another trophy. It's the same amount of weight, same amount of metal, whatever it's made of. But we all know that there have been champions in different sports that were truly the greats of their generation. All the best players on that team, they won in really compelling, amazingly entertaining ways. And then there were teams who win these sports that just got lucky at the right time. And, sure, there's plenty of skill involved too. But I think, one thing that's really special about sumo is that, yeah, you have to crown a champion for each tournament, but some of these roles are reserved for only those who have proven it over a sustained period. There doesn't always have to be a Yokozuna. There doesn't always have to be an Ozeki. To become an Ozeki is very, very difficult. You have to have 33 wins in three straight tournaments combined, obviously. So sometimes it's mathematically possible to just not have Ozeki or to have very few. So I think sometimes that's what's special is that those positions are earned, and it really demonstrates a quality level, not just about, oh well, who won the most that particular tournament, but who has this long-term quality. I think that's there's a certain amount of reverence that we have for certain wrestlers when they walk in because we know just how much they've earned that position.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the only wrestler so far that we saw even a glimpse of that was Takeru Fuji, and unfortunately that was short-lived because of his injury. And I'm becoming increasingly worried that the Takeru Fuji we saw in March may have been, sort of a one-time thing, that like because of his injury history, it won't be representative of his, of his career. I don't think he's going to the next time he's in Maegashira, I don't know if he's going to go 13-2 off the bat and just, dominate straight away. But it is something to think about. Like maybe we are just going to be in a position where, it's just the Ozaki and on down, until somebody proves, through like a couple of back-to-back, 13, 14, maybe even 15 win tournaments, that they are the guy. I think what's really fascinating is that I'm pretty sure each of the last few wrestlers who have gone 15-0 have been Yokozuna. Like it's not something or gone on to be Yokozuna. Like the ability to simply go undefeated is not something that even like the best, can do. It's something that truly only like the elite of the elite are even capable of, which is so cool to me.
I definitely love to see someone that dominant in a tournament again soon. And it's such a shame because Terunofuji, at the start of this past tournament, he began 10-0, and then he had that loss to Onosato, which was very exciting to see because Onosato being the first and at the time only person to beat Terunofuji in that tournament really seemed like a sort of a pivotal moment in his career, maybe. And then Terunofuji lost the last two matches of the tournament as well, and ended up having to go to a playoff to win it. And with everything we've been saying about Terunofuji and winning championships when he comes through, the fact that he ended up with only a 12-3 record, I mean, it's very good, but it's also typically the minimum record needed to win the tournament. I just would have loved to see that 14-1 maybe after the loss to Onosato to win
Yeah,
out
I was
all the way through.
disappointed. I really wish that he would have at least beaten Takanosho on day 14 to secure the title. And then, okay, like maybe he loses to Kotozakura, for the first time, by the way. And but it still not really even matters. But the fact that it had to go to the playoffs, I think kind of indicated that he was just losing steam at the end. And maybe I mean, I know that he's dealing with health issues now because reports are that he had to go see a doctor about a diabetes issue during the recent summer tour. So hopefully, everything's, good and he's healthy enough to, make an informed decision on the September tournament. But yeah, it really feels like the days of somebody being dominant enough to go 15-0. It may be a while before we see before we see our first, Zen show, of our sumo enjoying careers.
Yeah, it would certainly be something. And those wrestlers sometimes they're just special from day one as soon as they walk in, and then sometimes those wrestlers develop after a long time of getting to know their competition. It's always possible that someone like Onosato, the more he fights Kotozakura or Hoshoryu, the more he'll just learn how to beat them and start winning every time he faces those people, and maybe that's how some people become absolutely unstoppable later on in their careers. So, it's possible that someone we're already seeing in front of us is going to end up rising to that occasion. But it's also possible that there's some people coming up in the ranks, and that'll be here soon. Who knows?
So, speaking of coming up in the ranks, how about just our third and final topic for the day? What are your hopes for September? What would you like to see, and who do you have your eyes on?
Well, continuing with what we've been talking about this whole tournament, I'd love to just see Terunofuji complete two straight tournaments right now. I
Mm.
really find it hard to believe that he's going to fight in all 15 matches in September, if he fights at all, which is always a question. But it would be really nice to see him competing in multiple in a row. Then take the tournament after off if you gotta, but that would be really great to me. And then another thing I'd like to see for sure, and while we're still on the topic of the Sanyaku wrestlers, I want to see Onosato bounce back a bit. He went 9-6 in the last tournament, and one of those wins was a Fusensho. So that's really eight out of 14 matches that he won. Not a great performance. I want to see him back in the double digits next tournament. I want to see him 10, 11 wins fighting for that championship for the tournaments. How about yourself?
For me, I really want to see one of the Ozaki, win. I want to see, um, I would like to see Kotozakura finally get his first Yusho win. Like, it seems that he is now firmly in the class of very good but can't seem to get over the top, kind of like a rich man's Takayasu almost. Um, and it's just put so much pressure on him. Like, I want him to just finally get that win and get over the top. But the other thing I want to see is I want to see some of those Eastern European Rikishi a little bit lower on the Banzuke get some wins and get higher into the salaried ranks. I want to see Shishi dominate in Juryo again, and I want to see him in Makuuchi in November, and I want to see our young stud Onishiki. I want to see him dominate in the third division in September, so that he is also in in Jurio in November. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on a little bit below the the tippy top, and that's sort of where I've got my eyes on, and that's what I want to see. Now, as far as your your hope for Terunofuji, I will say that in of the what is it? I'm looking at the numbers right now. 8 previous times he has had a 12-3 record. He has gone on to finish the Basho in 7 of them. So of 8 previous times he's gone 12-3, he's competed in the entirety of the next Basho in 7 of them. So
Oh,
you've got about an 88% chance of getting Terunofuji for 15 days next month.
I see. So it's the getting 12 wins that makes him healthier. Interesting. That's interesting
I
theory.
wouldn't even say it's that. So this is something that I did seriously research over the course of the tournament. When Terunofuji wins his first I believe 4 matches, if he can just start the Basho 4-0, he always finishes the tournament.
Wow.
So if he can just reach 4-0, like I don't know if it's, just, like an infinity, like he just grabs an infinity stone out of his tuchus or something like that, but he just becomes invincible after he gets like a couple of wins under his belt in the first week. So something to keep an eye on if he does decide to compete in the first weekend.
I also just I don't want to gloss over you referring to Kotozakura as the rich man's Takayasu. I think that's
Yeah,
really
what did I say? I said the rich man. I tried to say the rich man's Takayasu. What did I
yeah,
say?
yeah, no, I think it's hilarious.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, and also just to your point about the the Eastern European wrestlers that you mentioned, I think it's really interesting timing that we're seeing Aonishiki and Shishi, performing so well and rising up in the ranks because we're also starting to just see the proliferation of sumo in the United States. I'm seeing it just popularized around here. The fact that there are multiple different touring tournaments that are showing sumo off in the United States. I was just in a conversation with someone the other day where I told them about how we're into sumo, and they actually told me that they heard of a local sumo show as well. So it really seems to be spreading around the world, and I think that's a great thing. And the fact that we're seeing competitors from all these different countries, not just in Japan and Mongolia now, I think it's exciting to see just how far and that these wrestlers are also competing at a high level. I'd love to just keep an eye on that and see how much more of it we're getting. Before we know it, there's going to be maybe some more American wrestlers back in the top divisions sometime soon.
Well, all right, let's not get crazy.
Of course.
There will never be another. I firmly believe that unless it's like an expat living in Japan, there will never be an American who emigrates to Japan so that they can become a sumo wrestler. Not when you can get paid infinitely more to and get a free college scholarship to play football with the same body type. But that's a
Well,
conversation for another day, I
but
think.
when we're in our 60s and we're still doing this podcast, we'll remember this old recording from August 2024, and we'll see if you're right. I think you might be.
We will see. All right. The Banzuke is, I believe, scheduled for somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks from now, and exactly 1 month from today, we are going to get more sumo. Man, you know that's one of the things I love about sumo. The farther away sumo gets, the closer it is.
That's right. That's right. We took a little while to get to this recap episode, so we actually got even closer to the next tournament, which is kind of nice.
Exactly. We're even closer than we would have been had we done this the day after the tournament.
That's good.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all for listening and enjoy the sumo.
See you next time.